My name is Justin Freeman. My YouTube handle is Arthur J.A. Freeman. I am the author of The Ghost of Amalgam, the linking tome, which is what I'm reading from. I'm about to begin Chapter 3, Barren City Procession. And once again, you can buy this book on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com or OutskirtsPress.com/Justin Freeman. So here we go. Chapter 3, Barren City Procession. It's so cold, Amy screamed as she tightened her cloak and folded her arms across her chest. You're taking us to hell, aren't you? Asked Gloria as she snuggled with a passenger for warmth. Everyone embraced the companion in the carriage. Wound tightly with Renee, Lauren felt the extreme cold and prayed to God for it to stop. Not a single part of her body was devoid of needle prick pain injecting shards of ice. They entered the snowy fields and rode forward for a mile to give ample space for the carriages behind them and then stopped. Nasra stood and opened the door. A wind gust seized the riders and they flinched again. Ladies and gentlemen, please exit swiftly. Mr. Dillon and Miss Venus, please remain seated. Everyone else follow me, said Nasra. Lauren watched as the purveyor rolled up the parchment and tilted it over a bag Grimsley held in his bony hand. Out of the folded paper rolled several silver tokens that swelled the bag, and the roll disintegrated when they stopped falling. The bag melted into Grimsley's cloak, and on his hand grew thin strands of muscle. Lauren and Renee struggled to exit. Their legs were quivering so hard they could barely stand. They strained to lift their heads as chilling winds tore at their faces. Their lips became tight and cracked, and their eyes felt as if razors were cutting them. Despite the pain, Lauren let go of Renee to survey the vast landscape before them. They were in a field of numerous small hills, rolling slowly as if the wind was pushing them along like tides of water. Snow fell lightly, and the sky was gray and cloudy. Hidden behind the gray clouds was the sun trying to seep its radiance through dim, depressing shade. She saw snow-covered mountains with a city embedded in the rock to the north and green trees to the east that were larger than the California redwood swath in an enchanting snowy haze at their base. To the south was an ocean, and in the distant west were thick violet clouds that moved like volcanic ash. Amalgam sucks, said Amy as she struggled out of the carriage, holding onto Mr. Vatek's waist. It's freezing, and it's too white. I can barely see. Complain, Amy said, Renee shivering. Why aren't you complaining? We could be partying right now if it wasn't for Lauren. The Reaper's carriages shrank in size, and the unicorns grew silver wings to take flight as they prepared to leave. Mr. Dillon and Mrs. Venus shouted to Nasra, "Wait, where are we going?" Other ghosts still aboard their coaches pleaded to stay with the gathering. Lauren watched them beg for release as the carriage took to the air and rocketed off in a silver flash of light. Lauren, over here, said Nasra. All the spirits from the Revenant City were amassed into a large group, and she had drifted away. Lauren rejoined the group, but was curious where the unicorns were taking the left-behind ghosts. She asked Nasra, who replied, "They share a more difficult path to redemption. Thankfully, you and the rest of this gathering do not." Nasra distanced herself from the crowd and used her small crystal ball to raise the snow below her. She grew higher, and then sprayed mist from this crystal into her mouth like breath freshener. Her voice amplified as if by a megaphone. "Please stay close. Don't move out of this perimeter for your protection." She shot 4 small clouds of mist from her crystal that landed on the snow in a perfect square. The golden globs shot 4 thick columns up to a height of 10 feet. Then translucent steam connected each pillar to form a barrier of Amalgam's new arrivals. Nasra leapt off her snow pillar and in the air transformed into a blue orb, drawing gasps of awe from the gathered. She floated away to join some previously unseen ghosts near another rising hilltop. Suddenly, a multitude of explosions filled the plain, hundreds as far as the eye could see. Ghosts emerged from these fiery eruptions as if white sepulchres dug themselves from the ground before bursting, releasing their dead. Then a flash of white shot across the Amalgam heavens. The sky turned blood red, and black clouds formed in the atmosphere. Small starlight blue lights rained from the sky and slammed into the ground, tossing up snow. When the snow cleared, ghosts lie on the ground, some writhe with pain, others while others shook with fear. This went on for an hour, and Lauren realized why Nasra said it was for their protection. Many ghosts were frightened after they entered Amalgam and ran, colliding with emerging ghosts or launched high into the air when the ground exploded beneath them. It looked like doomsday with a foreboding sky, bodies flying, and screams of fear and pain as the ghosts felt the bitter chill. Some ghosts ran towards the gathering's perimeter and pounded on the misty barrier, screaming for sanctuary. With their deathly appearance and terrified look, Lauren was frightened and stood close to Renee, Vastek, and Amy. Gloria said, "My God, we are in hell. I didn't do anything wrong." Lauren searched the hilltop for Nasra, where several ghosts didn't appear at all excited but hard at work. She saw them walking up a winding flight of stairs along the stone platform. It had many windows with lights moving about inside. The tower rose higher, yet its foundation sank, and Lauren realized the plane itself was depressing into an expansive pit. Ghosts tried to run out the growing hole, but tumbled down as the slope became too steep, yet the moving hills stopped their fall. The pit sank to a depth that allowed all in the gathering plains an adequate view of the tower. Along the walls of this pit rose flat snow slabs for seats, and to Lauren's surprise, the pit became a giant amphitheater. 4 smaller towers rose about the circumference of the pit, populated by armed ghosts dressed like Nasra. They wielded weapons like swords and staffs, but some carried odd tools like pocket watches and ice picks as their armaments. Guards they seemed to Lauren, but she wondered why security and even weapons were necessary in the land of the dead. From these smaller towers issued 4 large white cloths that magically stitched together into one and sheltered the amphitheater from the harsh weather. Lauren watched as the mobile hills formed 6 circular lanes between the rows, spiraling from the bottom to the top of the amphitheater. Each of the lanes, snow changed its color to white, orange, blue, green, red, and purple. Gold lettering appeared upon each, describing their destination as Castle Everlasting, the City of Ages, the Ocean Floor Palladium, the Gorge of Genesis, the Pagoda Harbor, and Ruin Everlasting. Their sprawling lanes leveled out at the surface under an archway that served as the amphitheater's exit and extended to the city at the mountain base. Under this archway were 6 ghosts, 1 for each lane. 1 ghost was dressed like Nasra and the guards about the perimeter. The other 5 had different color schemes and styles to their clothing, matching the lane where they stood. The female ghost in the orange lane wore a beautiful brown dress with gold line drawings of sand dunes. Her hair was wrapped about her head with a white headscarf tied with coin jewelry. Upon the blue lane stood a guardsman who was covered in aquatic scales from his feet to his chest and arms. About his head was a blue scaled helmet with sharpened fish bones and a fish skull that draped down between his brows. The ghost in the green lane was dressed in brown boots, olive drab pants, and a dull brown shirt underneath a chainmail and a dark green shirt. He wore a cape designed like a leaf upon which was an image of a massive fruit-filled garden with a giant stone slab in the middle. The 5th ghost was an Oriental lady who wore an embroidered red robe with pagoda and dragon designs upon it. Atop her shining slick back hair was a jade headdress, and at her waist a thick buckled jade sash. The last was a ragged peasant-looking guardswoman dressed in a brown torn overalls with an image of a ruined city on front that would be overgrown with vegetation one moment before a swarm of locusts or a sky full of ravens beset it. Turning her attention back to the pillar, Lauren saw a bevy of oars stream from the windows of the tower and transformed to soldier ghosts dressed like Nasra. There were 50 in all and moved about the amphitheater keeping order. Several thin black rods with hooks on their end extended from the tower top along with a black spool with a wound white sheet. 3 fairies floated from the windows and unfurled this sheet entirely around the tower and secured it upon the hooks. Then a ghost arrived at the podium atop the tower who placed a large book upon it and raised his hand to touch his temple. He extracted a tiny blue orb and flicked his finger, sending it into a small hole on the spool. The sheet visualized the ghost's face as he sprayed a misty substance in his mouth, and his voice rang out like Nasra's but louder so that everyone could hear. "If everyone would please take a seat, we can begin the procession," spoke the ghost. The barrier announced reform dissipated, and all 50 collected in the Revenant City were free to take their seats. The girls and their friends all sat near the top of the same row, on the same row. The excitement quelled among the ghosts, and when seated, the announcer spoke again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Amalgam here in the gathering plain of New Elysian. I am Cecil Graves and the master of ceremony of the Barren City Procession. First, as you all are undoubtedly aware, you have passed away from your mortal life and entered the spirit realm. Surely this is a grave announcement, but as you can see, life continues. Many of you may wonder just what Amalgam is, and I'll tell you. It's the land of purgation. Lauren listened and observed Cecil as he spoke. He was a black man with a pudgy face, heavy build, and his hair was shiny with a flat, square-shaped cut to it, and wore black framed glasses that made her wonder if ghost vision could deteriorate. He was clothed in a unique black trench coat with silver silk lining cuffs, and collar with black boots. Cecil gestured often as he spoke and was an excellent orator to the expensive audience. Cecil continued. The combination of all three realms, mortal land, paradise, and hell, Amalgam incorporates elements of each in order to save the souls of its inhabitants from their sins. Here you will work to purge yourself of sin before your judgment. Some of you have led very positive lives, and for that your stay shall be short. Others have lived violent and destructive lives, yet have been spared the inferno due to some redeeming quality. A few of you are castaways from the paradise realm, and it's here where you'll purge your envy and pride. Lastly are the very small remainder who will leave Amalgam and return to mortal life, but you will never speak of this land or be guilty of breaking the mortal land rule. Lauren listened as Cecil spoke the rule that had several conditions included within it. It began that no being in Amalgam or mortal land, whether angelic, demonic, human, ghost, animal, or native, shall bring to knowledge the existence of Amalgam or expose its purpose to uninformed inhabitants of mortal land. The rule concluded that the aforementioned inhabitants should not open access to Amalgam for those prohibited from entering. Those of you who will return to life are clearly visible as pink, whereas everyone else radiates blue, said Cecil. Lauren was thrilled she will be going home. Renee appeared slightly amused, and Amy let out a loud yes, which drew spiteful looks from many blue spirits who sat around her. Vastek said, "Call the hospital, Lauren, and my son. Have them get my body out of the house before I start to stink. I'm in the bathroom on the John." Lawrence nodded with a smile. Cecil continued. This rule was drawn up by the 6 barons and the angel Messina, our governing leaders collectively called the court. The court is dedicated to the purgation process and ushering souls to meet the Most High Judge. You will be mandated to rigorous, painful tasks in order to erase the sins on your guilty souls. You will then be summoned to stand before the judge for your judgment, either admittance or denial to enter the paradise realm. Many ghosts, including Lauren, were shocked by Cecil's description of their expected duties in Amalgam and were anxious about meeting the Creator. While you have been given the chance to obtain a clean slate in Amalgam, a few laws carry the weight of an unpardonable sin. Therefore, you are advised for your sakes not to break our laws or face a most undesirable punishment, said Cecil. Now, this event is called the Barren City Procession because you will proceed to one of 6 barren cities to purge your sins. First is Castle Everlasting, the capital city of the Ghost Nation, Morrigan, located here in New Elysian and home of Baron Lord Catherine, said Cecil. Cecil's image on the cloth turned to a visual of a floating city, the same one on Nasser's cloak, completely encapsulated by a golden circular barrier amongst the sun-setting sky and moving clouds. Much like New York or Chicago, Castle Everlasting had skyscrapers and bustling traffic, 6 towers connected via a stone wall that Cecil described as embassy towers, and 3 mansions in the distance, the largest of which was described as Baron Catherine's personal residence, Baronsgard. Floating above the Amalgam landscape, the everlasting city is fused with contemporary interior design, replete with all the amenities ghosts require. As he talked, the images changed to show additional sections of Castle Everlasting, such as a train station, a beautiful lake, and its mountainous surroundings, and a burning field that Lauren thought didn't seem to fit. Next, Cecil described the City of Ages in the Arcadia province. The image changed to a sprawling desert oasis city, surrounding a Persian-style castle constructed atop a desert mesa and only accessible by a national art bridge. Cecil described it as the largest amalgam city governed by Baroness Samina. The expansive city appeared constructed entirely of sand, but Cecil called them adobe buildings. And though they appeared stable, numerous buildings were shown to move away in the presence of four gigantic stone figures that lumbered about the city. Its Persian-style architecture was interspersed with lush greenery and similarly protected by a golden barrier. The City of Ages utilizes time and space manipulation that keeps the city out of normal time-space, preventing intruders from ever stepping foot into the city if they somehow manage to penetrate the barrier, said Cecil. The vision changed to show the ocean as if one was flying fast above the blue waters before plunging into the depths and darkness. Soon the procession audience witnessed a shining gold barrier in a massive city. Cecil said, located in the Aquatica province in the waters of Baron Jonah's Sea is the ocean floor palladium. Thanks to Jonah's metamorph mark, ghosts are able to assume aquatic organs such as gills, scales, and a husk more adapted to the crushing depths of the ocean. His city is split into two distinct metropolises called the wet and dry cities. If ever the aquatic lifestyle ceases to impress you, the dry city will allow you to live in relative comfort as a normal ghost so long as you don't mind living at the bottom of the ocean. As for underwater safety, fear not, you have plenty of protection as Baron Jonah's city boasts Amalgam's finest navy. Lauren was awestruck at the ocean floor palladium's unique features as Jonah's Baron's Guard was constructed within a giant clam. The wet city ghosts were housed in a large nautilus, and carved in a long trench was a bustling shopping center. The dry city appeared to be constructed much like the Aegis city, only smaller. Also glimpsed in this vision were numerous submarines with golden dew barriers and functioning as the ship's command centers, and an ocean surface lagoon where the embassy tower, shipyard, and their protective citadel was located. Shown next was a city hewn in the rock walls of a gorge network. This city was carved to protect the soaring rectangular obelisk and tightly enclosed within its valley with lush green mountains and waterfalls. The golden shield protecting this city appeared far thicker and stronger than the others, which seemed quite unnecessary as the canyon was shown. Which seemed quite necessary as the canyon was shown to flood well above the entire barren city. Cecil called the towering rock-hewn slab the obelisk temple. A massive church was only accessible by 3 bridges connected to towers extending from the surrounding mountains. Mist from the waterfalls rose high out of the chasm, and a rainbow stretched over the city. The Empyrean province is home to the Gorge of Genesis and is the Eden of Amalgam, the site where the judge first created the realm in his holy vessel. It houses a source of everlasting protective dew and our food called spectroplasm. The barren city is governed by Baron Donovan and has the honor of being the most beautiful city in Amalgam. It is sheltered from the canyon's flooding by an impenetrable dew barrier. The sheet then displayed a busy waterfront city filled with skyscrapers and homes, but the dominant feature was the multitude of red pagodas. Lauren counted over 15 built on the island surrounding the harbor, but there were innumerable in the mainland city, and one gargantuan white pagoda in the city's center dwarfed them all and appeared to emanate steam. Several junk ships were sailing with their red masts and jade-painted hulls on the sunset waters that reflected the red-orange sky. The picturesque harbor had a very tranquil effect on Lauren as she watched the boat sail along before Cecil resumed his oratory. Located on the Avalon continent is Baroness Gia's Pagoda Harbor that's host to a nightly festival complete with a 3-hour fireworks display. It has the distinction of being the busiest barren city, and its port is frequented by Jonah's naval ships. Last of all was a smashed castle described as ruin everlasting on the utopian continent governed by Baron Abraham. Upon first sight, it looked like Amalgam's junkyard, complete with overgrown vegetation, but Lauren realized it was designed so cleverly that it appeared to her like a child's playground. A slew of wrecked cruise ships appear to be the city for the ghosts to rest, while the broken castle where the fire. Oh, I'm sorry. For ghosts to. Let me read this again. A slew of wrecked cruise ships appear to be the city for ghosts to rest, while the broken castle was where the fire arose. A partially collapsed stadium was also present, as was a grand carousel that was the centerpiece of the entire city, surrounded by other rustic carnival rides, which made Lauren think that Ruin Everlasting might be the most fun. Unlike the other cities, the purgation process takes place in Ruin Everlasting's castle, its official building being the clock tower. Baron Abraham describes his design as a love for the magnificence of ruin and decay, said Cecil. Voices rose throughout the amphitheater as ghosts discussed each city. I like the City of Ages. What do you think, Kevin? Asked Gloria. I'll explore a bit. I'm leaning towards the capital, though, he replied. Where do you want to go, Lauren? Asked Renee. Lauren told her she was leaning towards Ruin Everlasting because she liked the artistic quality of the city. Renee offered up the gorgeous Genesis, saying it looked the closest to paradise. They didn't bother to ask Amy. If your spirit is pink, however, you must reside at Castle Everlasting, as every mortal land shade in New Elysian is required to stay in the House of Shades, said Cecil. Lauren and Renee were disappointed. Everyone, please keep the cities in mind when we begin to form our professional lines to Baronsward Citadel, where you will be transported to your desired city. If you're undecided, these cities are connected by a teleportation network called the Amalgam Portal, and relocation is simple should you change your mind. Now, Amalgam isn't all bad news. The benefits of being a ghost, and there are benefits, include the power of flight, transportation. I'm sorry, let me read that again. The benefits of being a ghost, and there are benefits, include the power of flight, transformation, and the ability to use magic for self-defense. The crowd was audibly amazed as the sheet formed the image of a ghost that turned into an orb as Cecil spoke of flight, old age, and youth as Cecil mentioned transformation. And at the mention of magic, the orb returned to a ghost holding a sword that created fireworks and showered the audience in confetti. On the back of your right hand are small graphical icons, symbols of your magical abilities. These marks are gifts originating from the Paradise Realm, and they symbolize several things. For some, they represent all the knowledge a person accumulated in their life. For others, they explain the function the judge has for them in Amalgam, or they embody the desires in one's heart, Cecil continued. There was much discussion in the amphitheater as the ghosts and the girls discovered their marks. Lauren looked at her right hand but didn't see a mark. She checked her left and found an icon of a cup overflowing with blood, yet had no idea what it meant. Why is mine on my left hand? Asked Lauren to Renee. She shrugged without looking and said, I got a veiled archway. Lauren looked at Renee's mark. It was of 3 rectangular stones in a makeshift door frame with a white veil wrapped around and dangling from the top block. A small step terrace functioned as the foundation. Mine shows a finger pressed against someone's lip. Am I supposed to keep a secret? Asked Amy. Yeah, good luck with that, Gossip Queen. Renee chuckled. My mark shows different kinds of animals, said Gloria. I got a playing card. It's a jack, said Kevin. Cecil continued. In your free time, it's advised that you learn to use this gift from the judge to entertain, aid, and protect yourself and fellow ghosts when in trouble. Protective measures in the realm of the dead may seem contrary, but there are many things to fear here. In fact, the threat is so great that you must stay close to your cities and not wander from the ghost provinces. Death in this realm is as perilous as in mortal land. Although the soul can never die, your husk can, which is what we call the gelatinous skin comprising your spiritual body. Your husks retain your vital organs and a circulatory system to deliver necroplasm, our blood, through the body. They are every bit as fragile and resilient as your human form in mortal land. If your husk is destroyed, your soul will leave Amalgam and appear before the judge with or without sins purged. And if you've been slacking in purgation, this is very bad news. Anxiety ripped through the gathering as they learned that mortality factored heavily in Amalgam. This is a negative side effect of the Mortalland's realm's influence and Amalgam's rich with danger. Outside of our cities, you'll be under constant threat from demons and animal attacks to violence among ghosts and native Amalgam creatures. You can protect yourself further and let Amalgam check its own savagery by not entering the Wilds District, which is any land outside of our provincial territories like the forest to the east. Lauren looked to the forest she observed upon her arrival. The gigantic green trees with their billowing snowy haze were now more foreboding than mystifying as dangerous beasts lurked inside. The most serious threat is the Dark Phoenix, Amalgam's great sinner and his ghost of the snow. There are many evils in our world, but only one assumed divine power through a great sin, one so terrible that it changed the very fabric of our world. The white sheet displayed a montage of Amalgam's landscape showing lush forests, pleasant animal and ghost relations, pristine cities along the landscape, and calm weather. Centuries ago, Amalgam was a peaceful world save for the purgation fields. All was in balance, and there were ghosts, and there the ghosts of Amalgam practiced their creation arts with their marks, conversed in joy, and pondered a life of incomparable pleasure promised in the promised paradise realm. The kingdom of God, a paradise without death, pain, or suffering, where we forever live with our Creator, was a dream many worked feverishly for, as salvation was only a purge sin away. The journey to paradise, however, would become more treacherous after the great sin and the great sinner, said Cecil. The montage changed to show the interior of a cathedral where ghosts wearing crusader armor following three angels stealthily approached a huge figure sitting in a chair. The holy vessel has remained in the Messinas since Amalgam's creation. The judge left his spirit inside as a seal to separate the realms before returning to paradise. Unbeknownst to us was the shameful plot being hatched by three renegade angels and one ambitious ghost. The knight floated up to the sitting colossus, stood on its leg, and pulled out a wand before moving to the right arm of the vessel and plunging it into the hand. Black smoke issued from the mark, and as a dark mist shrouded the scene, the whole amphitheater shook, alarming the ghost. The image became pitch black before depicting the ruined body of the vessel, whose organs were all visible through its broken frame. The vessel of the judge lay molested in his wake. With the removal of the vessel's mark, the judge's spirit fled Amalgam, sealing access to the paradise realm, and the Creator ceased summoning souls for a year. The montage showed the former Amalgam landscape beset by fierce weather. Buildings were ruined in the wake of terrible storms, and the ghosts in these images were enshrouded in gelatinous husks as they sought refuge from the perilous climate. Massive riots broke out over small pools of gray fluid as ghosts fought to lap from them like vicious, starving dogs. Thus, the drastic change of Amalgam. No longer could ghosts live without nourishment. No longer could we travel by thinking and arrive in an instant. No longer were the seasons gentle and the world of Amalgam peaceful as before. Though we retained our ghostly powers to stave off an untimely second death, we feared for our lives once more. Firestorms, deluges, and blizzards became the new seasons. The infernal realm's influence on our dominion. Ghosts needed to feed on spectroplasm, a now bitter substance found in pits we called dead pools that were appearing about the landscape. The judge instilled new leadership, our barons, to replace the governing angels who left because Amalgam couldn't chance their total corruption. The spirit responsible never resurfaced for more than 100 years, and when he rose, his purpose was entry into paradise, his name the Dark Phoenix. The image changed to the earth with the 6 additional continents floating on the oceans Lauren knew weren't physical landmasses, but was now aware of their existence. Cecil named them each. Utopia resided on the northern Pacific Ocean, while Avalon rested in the southern Pacific. Elysium and Aquatica were located in the North Atlantic, Empyrean in the South Atlantic, Arcadia in the Indian Ocean, and the Arctic Ocean claimed Messina. Covering the traditional continents, which Cecil described as the mortal land, were lethal purple clouds rendering the mortal world forbidden to ghosts. He also claimed that the only faultless land within these clouds was an area in North America called the Revenant City. Cecil said, Dark Phoenix and his followers set to war, removing the seals to the mortal and infernal realms. This second despicable sin brought the inhabitants of the three disparate worlds closer than the judge ever intended, as condemned demons and forbidden mortal shades enter our purgatorial realm. When the mortal land seal materialized on the human plane, it created the Revenant City that became a place where mortals and spirits dangerously coexist and is ever expanding further, defying the judge's commandments. He continued, faced with more lethal threats, the barons decided to restrict their territorial range for our protection since they lacked the vast power of the guardian angels. The barons readjusted their cities to accommodate the high population densities of their smaller provinces. Our leaders also formed a military to stop the Dark Phoenix's destruction, but as his name suggests, he continues to rise and with his loyalists cause ruin to our realm. The Phoenix calls his most loyal and powerful warriors Ghosts of the Snow, whose magical skills are comparable to our barons. Amalgam snow is one of the coldest substances in our world, and the name symbolizes their unrepentant disintegration into evil spirits who stand wholly against the judge. The Phoenix and his loyalists will tempt you with the promise of an easy way into the paradise realm and give you power beyond the limits of your mark as an incentive. Should you give into temptation, your soul will be against the judge forever unless you seek his forgiveness. You have been warned. Cecil concluded the procession by asking ghosts to file into the designated lane of their desired city and move in an orderly fashion. The ghosts from the Revenant City began to sort in with the rest of the procession as the audience converged onto the 5 lanes without much commotion, and all swiftly exited the collapsing amphitheater. The pit bottom rose and the tower receded as the fairies rolled the white sheet. The seats merged with the rising level ground, restoring the gathering plain. Only the girls, Gloria and Kevin, remained without a chosen lane from the Revenant City gathering. Gloria said with inviting eyes, I'm going to the City of Ages and I would love some company. Care to join me, Kevin? I'd love to, said Kevin as he took Gloria by the arm and led her to that lane. Lauren wanted to follow them, but Renee reminded her of their obligation. We have to go to the capital, remember? Yeah, we're going home, said Amy, excited. That concludes chapter 3. Once again, my name is Justin Freeman, author of The Ghost of Amalgam, the Linking Tome, available on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com, also OutskirtsPress.com/Justin Freeman. I said I would only read the first 3 chapters, but I just might continue on with chapter 4, where the action starts. Once again, this concludes this particular reading session of chapter 3, the Barren City Procession, and we shall see if I read chapter 4, the Tree Riders Raid. Thank you so much.